Hey guys, today's podcast is sponsored by AMAC, the only conservative alternative to AARP. Join today at amac.us/Carter. That's amac.us/Carter. Today, I'm going to be joined by John DiGirolamo. He is the author of It's Not About the Sex: True Stories of Human Trafficking from a Law Enforcement Officer, a Survivor, a Brothel Madam, and an Advocate. This is incredible work by somebody who did the deep digging, who did the deep dive into finding out the truth of what is happening from the perspective of the people that are involved. And it's going to be you. You're going to be involved in this. Why? Because this is about saving our children from predators. This is a warning to every single parent out there. You got to listen to this podcast. I brought him on. I know all of you have probably, if you're following me on Twitter, if you follow me on Instagram, you've seen my Dark Wars podcast that we've launched with Radio America. It is our non-for-profit. It's a podcast that focuses on the lies and the misconceptions that we are being told by the government. But we talk about the border. We talk about human trafficking. This episode right here is about giving you actionable tools so that you can save your child's life. You do not want to miss this interview. I promise you, it's so good. It's so good. I love this guy, John. He is really a fighter, and I'm going to be bringing him back on the show over and over again, just so he couldn't get into everything that he wanted to talk about here. I mean, that's just how good this is. And it's going to give you the tools. You are going to you won't be a victim here. You won't be a victim. You will be a warrior in the battle to save your child. I promise you that. Do not go away. Hey, everyone, please follow and subscribe. Get all the links at saraacarter.com. That is saraacarter.com. And guess what? While you're there, you know what I'm going to ask you to do? I'm going to ask you to sign up for our email list so that you don't get shadow banned. I don't want you to be shadow banned. I don't want to be shadow banned. And thank God Elon Musk is now in charge of Twitter. Isn't it amazing that in the last 3 days, right after he took over, there was an algorithm. We all knew it. People on the conservative side that were being pushed down, literally blinded to the rest of our Twitter followers and everything. You couldn't even imagine what was going on there. But all of a sudden, when Elon Musk stepped in, 15,000 right away. People, like in 2 days, like 15,000. I'm almost at 1.4 million, which I would have been over a year ago. And they've kept an algorithm to keep me from going over that. It was really weird. My husband and I would watch it and just be like, look at what they're doing again. Okay, I'm going to be bringing John DiGirolamo on in a minute. But first, I want to tell you about another great patriot. It's Mike Lindell. Mike Lindell with MyPillow. Why? Because he cares about American products. He cares about you. He does. And his products are phenomenal. I love them. I have them all over my house. I order them all the time. I use them for gifts. I order bed sheets for my kids in college. I get them the towel sets. I get the dog pillows, and I make them, I buy them early. So I have them as gifts. Listen to this right now. Queen size, regular price, $89.98. Guess what, folks? Still, now with my promo code Carter, $39.98. You're going to get a full set of sheets for $39.98. You just can't beat that. So go to mypillow.com/Carter or call 1-800-685-7221 for deep discounts on MyPillow Percale Bed Sheets. Queen size regular $89.98, now on sale for only $39.98 while you're there. Take advantage of the buy one, get one free sale on all my pillows, towels, and more. Visit mypillow.com/Carter or call 1-800-685-7221 today for the sale of the year on MyPillow Percale Bed Sheets. mypillow.com/Carter or call what? 1-800-685-7221. Okay, we are going to be talking about a really heavy subject today, but one that shouldn't be so depressing. And I'm going to tell you why. We know the horrors of what happens in the world with human smuggling and traffickers. We see that. We think, oh, that's an issue that happens, in Thailand, in Mexico, in Central America. No, It's an issue that happens here in the United States more often than you can imagine. And guess what? John DiGirolamo is going to tell you how it could be affecting children in your own home, your friend's child, a relative's child, or someone that you love that's close to you. Because there's all these extenuating circumstances now in the age of social media and global connections, right? You all know it. You all know it. You go home. It happens to me too. We have teenagers. We have college students. We have children that have children. We have a young child. I've got the whole gamut in my family, the whole gamut. And sometimes your kids are just, on an iPad, or they take their laptop, or they go up to their room and they're doing homework. Well, sometimes that's not the case. All of our kids they're just human beings. They just want to be accepted. They want to be loved, and they get online and they start going onto these social media sites. And I think some of them are just devastating. But sometimes things are happening right underneath our noses and we don't even know. We don't even know because we don't want to believe that our children could be lured by these monsters or that these monsters could come into our home. And they are. They're coming into our home through our computers. That's why I'm saying you got to stay here, stay with me until we get to John, because John DiGirolamo is going to give you the tools that you're going to need to fight all of these nasty monsters in our world that are trying to, and they're rotten to the core. These are people that are rotten to the core, and they are trying to take our children from us, and we are not going to let them. We are not going to let them. And we can see the border right now, right? We see what's happening at the border. I've got another story of what happens, right, to people that are being trafficked and the horrors of the open Biden chaos at the border and why this subject is so important, right, to all of us as Americans as we go to the polls November 8th. This is a subject that means something to all of us because the border is not just the border. I say this over and over again. The border is the people that are being trafficked into this country that we don't even know who they are. We have no idea if they've had criminal records, if they're coming here to do us harm, if they're just coming here to farm. We have no idea, right? For the majority, we just don't have an idea. And we know children are being trafficked across that border. We know women are being raped across that border. We know people are being moved up and down the corridors of our highway on that border. And here's a story right now for you. 32 migrants found locked in a U-Haul truck after pursuit near the Arizona border. And I was just in Arizona with Sean Hannity. I was just there. Art Del Cueto, my good friend, I know he listens to this podcast. I'm bringing him back on. He is actually with the Border Patrol Union. And I was with Brandon Judd just recently. He is the president of the Border Patrol Union, National Border Patrol Council. And I was with him on Fox and Friends early in the morning with Rachel Campos Duffy, who was doing it live from the border. How wonderful is that? Getting the news to you live. And we were talking about these horrific issues that people are just being trafficked and our federal government isn't doing a damn thing. Not a thing. Not a thing. Now, these people that they found in Arizona were thankfully alive when they found them because guess what? There was a 10-year-old child among all these 32 migrants. I'm going to read you this story. This is from Breitbart. Love you, Breitbart. The driver of the U-Haul box truck in Arizona led Border Patrol agents on a high-speed pursuit with a group of migrants locked in the rear cargo area. Can you imagine what that was like? The migrants had no means of escape in the event of a crash or abandonment. Tucson Sector Chief Patrol Agent John Maudlin tweeted photos of the group of migrants rescued by the agents from the rear of the U-Haul box truck. The driver of the truck failed to yield when agents assigned to the Tucson station attempted to stop the truck for an immigration inspection along IH-10. I mean, I was just there with Art Del Cueto. And by the way, he's the vice president of the National Border Patrol Council, and he's out there in Tucson. Beautiful, beautiful city. Beautiful city. I love the saguaro cactus, and it's just Unbelievable, though, what residents have to go through with these high-speed chases. When the agents activated the emergency lights and siren, the driver attempted to evade apprehension and sped away to the west from Tucson. The driver eventually stopped on the rural road located southwest of Tucson. And guess what? He bailed and left all the people locked in the back. That man should be charged with attempted murder. And by the way, those cartels that are running these hundreds of billions of operations, hundreds of billions of dollars in human trafficking, weapons and everything else, I swear we should just designate them terrorist organizations. Especially, I'm going to name them: Sinaloa Cartel, La Familia, Nueva Generación. All of you and your leadership should be targeted and should be named terrorist organizations, so we could use every single asset in our toolbox to take you down. Absolutely. I have no worries. I say this without even hesitation because I'm sick of it. I'm sick of the way these people are operating. The agents identified the migrants as 31, listen to this, adult men from Guatemala and Mexico. One accompanied minor was also locked inside the truck. Think about that. 31 men and one unaccompanied minor. Why was that child locked in the back of that truck? I'm definitely going to call the folks I know in the Tucson sector for all of you. I mean, I just got this story right now as I'm doing the podcast, but I'm definitely going to call and check in on this child and find out the details about this child, because that is vitally important. Every child's life should mean something. Every child's life must mean something. And that's why I'm so grateful and so happy. Really, I am happy to have author John DiGirolamo on the show with me today. He's the author of It's Not About the Badge, Real Cops, Real Stories, Number 12 Suicide, and his new book, It's Not About the Sex. True stories of human trafficking from a law enforcement officer, a survivor, a brothel madam, and an advocate. And yes, the things that he is about to tell you are going to shock you and surprise you. I promise you that, because many of you don't believe it's happening here the way it is. Many of you, just like me, like anybody else, don't realize what is happening right here in our country, in our own homes, in our own backyards. I'm very, very happy to have with me author John DiGirolamo. He is the author of It's Not About the Badge, Real Cops, Real Stories, Number 12 Suicide, and now his new book, It's Not About the Sex. True stories of human trafficking from a law enforcement officer, a survivor, a brothel madam, and an advocate. He is an anti-human trafficking advocate and a native of Colorado. Such a beautiful state, John. I love Colorado. This is a really, really tough subject that a lot of people have a very hard time dealing with. What drove you to write this book from that perspective?
Yeah, a couple of things. For the high level is that it's really an issue that's not very well reported. There's a lot of misperceptions. And I really started to think about doing this book when I was interviewing a police officer for my last book, It's Not About the Badge, where I'd ask questions like, what do you... tell me about a day on the job you'll never forget. And I do these interviews and I end with easy questions. What's your favorite movie? What's your favorite song? And I said, what would you do if you won the lottery? And one of the officers just stopped cold in his tracks and said, I'd quit my job and hunt down human traffickers. And when I heard that, I just knew that that was going to be the next project. And the more I got into it, the more I learned, the more I realized there's a lot of misperceptions. And most people just have a kind of a surface level understanding like I did.
Mm-hmm. And that's not surprising. I deal with that as well. Right now, we just launched the Dark Wars podcast, specifically related to the border. Part of that I'm dealing with is human trafficking. It's also an area that I believe needs to be more exposed, one that needs to be investigated even deeper. Let's talk about some of the misconceptions. Tell me a little bit about what I think surprised you the most as you were delving into this from the various characters? Because you're seeing it from all sides. You got the law enforcement side, but you also have, the side of the victim. And that's very, very important. Survivors, I would call, them survivors. When they're children, I say they are victims, but once they get through it and they're survivors. But what was most surprising to you from all these different perspectives? And interestingly enough, I'm very interested in the brothel madam as well.
Okay, sure. I think a couple of the things that surprised me when I started doing the research is that, people that are exploited in this manner, the kidnapping stat is 3 or 5%, which is really small. So it's not that person on the street corner where a van pulls up and they're thrown into the van and taken away and things like that. And so that doesn't happen. That the fact that 45% of the victims out there are boys, I thought it was really going to be mostly a female. And that I knew there were vulnerable groups, runaways, homeless teens, something like that. But what really surprised me is how it can happen to somebody who's still living at home, still going to school, and yet they're being exploited for sex trafficking. And that's why there's a couple of plot lines in the book specifically revealing how that happens, how that grooming process happens. So I wanted the reader to not just read a bullet point on a report, but get a plot line, storyline to really explain how that happens.
I think that's so important. I think every single parent needs to read your book. I think everybody out there, everyone should, but especially parents, because as a mom, and my husband and I, between us, have 6 children who we love dearly and are always worried about. And I'm sure you as a father, and your daughter's in law enforcement, which is fantastic. I think that's so wonderful. What a great human being you raise, somebody who goes out there and wants to help other people. But a lot of times I think we're naive as parents. We just think like, our kids are in the bedroom. They're fine. They're not out in the streets running around tonight. But there really is a danger for them out there, right? I mean, there is a real danger. And sometimes it's like right in their computers.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Because in the old days, when I was home and sitting at the kitchen table watching my parents make dinner, I was safe. But today, that stranger danger is digitized because the great equalizer is Wi-Fi. So they could be sitting at that kitchen table under your watchful eye, but the predator is in their pocket. It's in the phone, because it doesn't matter if you're in a big city, small town, rich, poor, whatever. If you're online, any predator can see you. And more importantly, every single application, every program out there has private messaging, chat rooms, etc. You wouldn't let your 10-year-old wander the mall by themselves and talk to 20 strangers. So why would you let them talk to 20 strangers online just because they happen to be in your kid's gaming chat room or something like that?
Wow, 100%. I bet you there's so many parents out there that are feel like they've been hit with a hammer because, most people don't pay it. They think that their kids are just talking to their friends, on these different games. And I would mention some of them, but everybody knows what they are. They're games that all of our kids love. They go inside, they build houses, they have villages. And then I remember that happening to me one time, John, where I was like asking my daughter and I was like, who are you talking to? Like, who are you chatting with? I all of a sudden I realized she was like building a house. And she's like, I don't know. Somebody keeps asking me if I want to be their mommy. And I'm like, no, that's not going to happen. So I had to go in there and like put all the child proof, and some of the games have them like Minecraft and everything. So where a parent can control it. But I've got to believe that there's parents out there that have no clue or aren't even paying attention because they think it's safe. But you were talking to law enforcement officers quite a bit. What would they tell you? Would they say, oh, John, we're surprised when we tell parents and, we're warning about this all the time. And then they're like, we had no idea. Did that ever come up in conversations with them?
Yeah, many of us are savvy in some kind of computer programming. So for myself, it might be PowerPoint, it might be Excel, but the average 10, 12-year-old, they're experts at games and social media. And that's a whole different generation. They've grown up with that, and they view their value and their popularity by the number of friends, the number of followers, the number of likes, who's watching my Snapchat story or something like that. And so they're just driven to try to increase those numbers. And I guarantee you that a lot of those numbers are predators. If you're a predator, where are you going to go? You're going to go to a kid's site, a popular site like TikTok, Snapchat, things like that.
What do you say to parents now? I mean, do you get scared ever because you're doing these books? People ask me that all the time. They say, Sara, you talk to a human trafficker, or you're down on the border and you're dealing with people that have been victimized so many times. Does that ever haunt you? I mean, do you feel like it's a purpose for you now, like a mission to get these stories out there to save lives? Because you really are doing that. Someone reads his book, you read John's book, you literally could be saving a life in your own family or someone else's life. Somebody that may come up and ask you a question, or you may notice something, right?
Yeah, so kind of two parts to that answer. One is there are certain things that I put in the book to specifically show the predator playbook. How does somebody groom someone online, for example, and trick them and then later exploit them? So there are specific plot lines that deal with that to show the reader, show the parents. When I started talking about the book once it was done, I started getting a lot of questions. And so I've kind of expanded what I talk about as far as the general online safety. What are predators doing to target teens specifically? Because they're doing those things generally for three purposes. They're either going to want more content, they're going to want to meet in some fashion to have some kind of sexual encounter, or they're going to try to extort them, or some combination. So it's a broader issue, right? Because if somebody is, say, tricked into sending, say, for instance, a topless photo, well, now that teenager not only could be exploited, they could be sending that to all their friends. That's going to lead to shame, depression, suicidal thoughts, cyberbullying. And one of those issues is human trafficking, but it's a lot of these other issues too. And that predator tactic is the same, because a lot of times if they try to extort them, it may be specifically for trafficking, but there's a lot of people looking for child pornography, etc. And they're going to use online methods to meet kids or teens. And I've talked to an undercover police officer who essentially went after these guys, and the stories that he told are just incredible.
It's got to be hard. While you were talking, I was just thinking to myself, I live here in Texas and in a really great community. But I was talking to a lady who I'd met out here, becoming friends with her. And she said that we were talking. She has a young teenage daughter or preteen. And her daughter's best friend actually ended up committing suicide over a year ago. So you can imagine a young child, taking her own life because of harassment online, and there was other issues involved. So it is like there is an intruder in your life coming into your home almost every single day. I mean, what do you think? Do you think kids have just way too much access, just too young to these technologies, or do we just need to be better at watching over them, do a better job of it?
Yes, and yes. So, the average fourth grader is generally unsupervised and online for many hours a day. And the stats will show that, the typical tween is on 6 hours and a teenager is even more. So first off, they're online a lot. Many times they're looking for some kind of affirmation, you're so pretty, you're so wonderful, those kinds of things. And predators are going to feed them whatever they think that they're going to need. And so then you've got to be the involved parent. You have to check their phone, find out where they're spending their time, limit that time, and be able to kind of control that situation, and sort of more of a be the parent, not the friend type of scenario, because otherwise kids are they're just going to go on, and they could be just wasting time, but they may not be looking for trouble, but trouble is definitely looking for them.
Wow, such a great point. Such a great point. I was talking to my friend Lawrence Jones. I did a show Saturday night, and he actually said something just like you said, and something my mom used to say, but I hadn't heard it in a long time. Lawrence's mother was 16 when she had him. So he's the youngest, I guess, a talk show host on television, and is very successful. But he was saying his mother always used to say, "I'm not here to be your friend. I'm here to be your parent." She had to, she had to learn how to raise him. And that's just such an important point. I was looking at here, you structured your book differently. You tell the stories differently. You also include music. You include different at the beginning and at the end, short song lyrics and other forms of media at the beginning and the end of your chapters. Could you explain? I mean, I think it's a brilliant idea. I just want to know what made you think of it and why you include it.
Yeah, so a couple different reasons. Many times during the interview process, I would ask, is there a meaningful song to that particular person? And they would tell me, and I would look for a place where that would make sense. There were some songs that just struck me as something that would be applicable. And then, if you look at my chapter on law enforcement, I've got several rap lyrics where I can't even read you the title because it's got such profane language in it, let alone the actual lyrics. And I really wanted to show just how that culture makes human trafficking worse because, well, one, it's sort of glorifying the pimp lifestyle, but it's also, it's truly, to me, the war on women. And it's making people as objects, as transactions, a warped view of what love and relationships are supposed to be like. And so it really, to me, it smacks you in the face. And, the rap music is not my kind of music most of the time, but just the lyrics are just so bad. And if teens are listening to that, it has some kind of influence because what's the most overused headline today? Celebrity wears a revealing outfit. And what does that tell a 13-year-old girl? It says, well, that's how you get attention. What does it tell the boy? It says, well, that's what girls are there for. So, it's giving us this warped view.
I think that's a great point. I spoke to Rosie Orozco. She was a former congressional member in Mexico who has now dedicated her life to fight human trafficking. And I met her years ago. And I remember one day I was talking to her and I said, what is the most important thing, Rosie, you think like you're learning, from all of the people that you're meeting, everything that you're doing? And she said, the fact that there's such a misconception about prostitution, about slavery, about human trafficking. And she said a lot of, men that she would talk to would say, well, if I go to Thailand, it's legal. And if they're over 18, it's because they've chosen that life. And she would say, no, they haven't really chosen that life. And that goes right to you. What you were saying, these are young children. These are women that were taken, most of them when they were young, and they were sold from being very young, and they have a very low self-worth, whether that be from just the way society has treated them, whether that be from the way their family treated them, that they ended up in the, the sex market or the sex trade. So you're dealing with damaged goods. And she said, I wish I could get men to understand that. And even women, she said, because there's women that participate in that too. But is that something that you hear from people that you deal with, that you talk with? Like there's this misconception, like the real victims are always treated like they're the dirt kind of a thing. And then the people who are doing it are kind of excused from it. It's kind of like, why haven't we seen anybody arrested in, with, the Epstein case? You know what I'm saying? We've seen the perpetrators of it, but we haven't seen the Johns, right? We know who some of them are, but we haven't really seen anybody arrested. Is that happening too on the lower,
Yeah, everyone that I've interviewed in the book, as well as several others that I've talked to, they all say that pretty much no one is volunteering for this, and especially if you're underage, it's a 100% exploitation situation, and the pimps are making the money, not the girls, and even if they're over 18, they're not making any money, and even if they are making some money, maybe they're on their own or for whatever reason, they're really there's no happy endings, because it just really kills your soul. And one of the chapters I had is on the brothel madam, and she just talks about this decade of self-degradation and just really was never happy and was forced many times to do things that she didn't want to do. And sometimes you have to hit rock bottom in order to have a redemption story.
Right, right. Was there ever a story you talk about, like interviewing? And I love this because talking to authors, I think, it takes a lot of work to sit down and write a book. You're writing your own book. You're going out there. You're doing the interviews. It's not like you got a ghostwriter and you're just calling in every 5. You're doing all the legwork. You're talking to the sources. What was there ever something or someone, a story or someone that really hit you, like really got you in the gut, like where you said, wow, this is the reason why I'm doing this, or this has really affected me?
Yeah. So I'll kind of do 2 parts real quick. So one of them was from the law enforcement officer. I was really surprised at just how violent these pimps are, because they're not just doing sex trafficking, but many times they're selling drugs, gun running, etc. So they are really violent, and there's no value of human life that they show. And that really, kind of hit me pretty hard. And I wanted to show that specifically in the story. And then the second one is on the survivor, the flip side. She is in her mid 50s. This happened when she was 5 years old. And most of her story is the 50 years after that, is that healing and recovery journey. And how does one go through something that she went through and have the perseverance in the face of adversity? How do you do that? And to me, that could be you could look at that as very inspirational, not as a book that's, it's very depressing. It's all about, people being exploited. It's,
right.
Yes, but there's definitely inspirational pieces, because all of these people, whether it's the advocate who changed her life to go help these folks, or whether it's the survivor and how this person went through years of things that did work, didn't work, etc. There's a lot of positive that people can get out of this book. And it's not just a depressing stories of people being exploited.
Absolutely. Absolutely. 100%. Why do you, and I'll give you that opportunity, because I think I only have a couple more questions really right now. And I want to bring you back onto the show, because I think this is such an important topic, because I believe you are saving lives. And I believe this is so important. Every single parent, if you want to save your child's life, I talk about this all the time. I try to warn parents about the, counterfeit pills on the streets and the fentanyl, about what happens online with online predators. Here's somebody who actually did the legwork. Here's somebody who actually interviewed the right people. John's done this. And not only has he done that, but he even went one step further. He put in his book a whole array of step-by-step guidelines. You don't need to reinvent the wheel here. You can just go to his book and you can look at it and say, okay, what am I doing right here? What am I doing wrong? What do I need to be looking for? And because of that, John, I think you're one of the few people in the media, and I know some beautiful people that have tackled this subject, beautiful, wonderful human beings that are trying to get the word out. But why do you think it's so underreported? Why do you think people are not reporting on this enough, especially in this day and age when our kids are like immersed in social media?
Yeah, that's a hard nut to crack, because I've heard just from other people that it's a difficult subject. No one wants to think about it. They think that,
Right.
Yeah, it happens in Thailand, but maybe it's on the border and big cities, which it is. But it doesn't happen in my nice small town. It doesn't happen in my nice suburban community. And that's why I wrote stories specifically, small town, middle America, suburban communities, with seemingly regular teenagers. And I wanted to focus on that because that's where I would tell people, hey, I'm working on this book. And they're like, oh, it doesn't happen like that. And I'm going, no, I've heard more than one person, more, case files, et cetera. And I really had to sort of drive that point home, because I think people just don't want to believe it. It's kind of like the sexual abuse issue in general. It's not an easy subject. It can happen in families. No one wants to talk about it. But until you start being aware, looking for the signs, you can't solve a problem if you don't know anything about it.
Absolutely. And by the way, the United States has one of the biggest issues with sex trafficking, paying for sex trafficking, abuse of children, abuse of teenagers, adult abuse. I mean, we've seen it across the board. We're very blessed. We have a lot. We are a nation that has,
Right.
I think, a phenomenal nation, right? And we're good people, but we also have an excessive side to us. And we've seen that, and we've got to come to terms with that. And I really do believe that we have to face those subjects that are really tough, that are really hard. And that's why I want you on the show more. I want to bring you back. I mean,
Well, I'd love to be back.
want to give you. Oh, I would love that. And I would love to give you an opportunity to say, like, what can we do? What can I do to help this from happening in our communities? Who can I go to support? What should we do? What action can we take as moms and dads and friends and brothers and sisters? What can we do to help stop this and save our children?
Yeah, we could absolutely do a whole show on the online safety, what to do. I just wanted to point out a couple of quick grooming signs for your audience, but before we have to go.
I love that.
So
Please.
One of them, if any teenager has a second cell phone, start asking questions. If there's unexplained gifts, new clothes, new jewelry, red flag for sure. Any kind of secrecy about friends, especially online friends. And again, that might be your teen, but it might be the kid on your teen soccer team, or the quiet kid who's in the back of the room or something like that. And kind of that last, I'll give you an old school recommendation. Every teenager should know by heart 5 phone numbers. When I was a kid, I knew all kinds of phone numbers: home, friend, family, etc. That became speed dial 1, 2, and 3. Now it's in our contact database on our smartphone. Nobody knows any phone numbers. I only know 2 phone numbers out of all the people in my contact. And so if a kid is in real trouble, they need to know a couple of phone numbers besides 911.
Wow, that's a great point. You're absolutely right. I did with our youngest, who's 10. She does know my number by heart and her dad's. But you're right. There's so many kids that just don't know it because they haven't had to think about it. And they could easily lose their phones, or they could easily end up taken, and then they wouldn't know who to contact. Thank you so much, John. This is everybody out there. I know how many emails I'm going to get on this, how many reviews I'm going to get on this. I know you care. These are stories that I care about too. That's why I bring you, John, onto the show. Thank you so much. It's John DiGirolamo, and I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. And he's the author. I am. Okay, great. It's a beautiful name, by the way. It's a beautiful Italian name. I just want to make sure I'm not tearing it up. He is the author of True Stories. It's not about the sex. True stories of human trafficking from a law enforcement officer, a survivor, a brothel madam, and an advocate. And it gives you the 1-2s of what you need to do to protect your family, protect your children, and protect those you love. Thank you so much, John.
Yeah, thanks. I encourage people to go to Amazon to find the book. It's on Kindle, audio, as well as paper.
Everyone. I'm going to get that for Christmas for some of my friends, actually. That's what I'm going to do. Only if you promise to sign it. I can mail them to you and I'll have you sign them.
Actually, I have a website and you can get a signed copy there.
It is not about.
It is www.itisnotabout.com. You can get a signed copy from me and I mail it out directly to you. Really appreciate being on the show. Great conversation. Thanks so much for having me.
Oh, it's so great having you on the show, too. Thank you so much for what you do. You're a true hero, a great man. Thank you so much for what you do. It's got to be tough, but you're saving lives. I truly believe that.
Thank you.
Okay, folks, we're going to jump right into this other story because I want to give it to you before we head on out. And you know, there is nothing worse than tax time, right? So I see this story. We have it on our website. Just the News also reported this. John Solomon over at Just the News. IRS employees actually stole from COVID relief programs. Listen to this. They went on vacation and shopping sprees with our taxpayer dollars. And what makes it even worse to me is that the Biden administration is going to give 80,000 more positions at the IRS. So what? So we could have more crap stolen from us while they go ahead and, investigate every small American business, every large business, weaponize the IRS like they did under Lois Lerner. Is that what we got going on right here? Listen to this. IRS employees, 1 former and 4 current, allegedly submitted fraudulent loan applications through the Paycheck Protection Program and the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Programs in schemes seeking to obtain a combined $1.1 million in loans. The government spending watchdog OpenTheBooks.com reported the 5 alleged fraudsters were approved by the SBA for a combined $418,125 in loans, individually receiving between $27,550 and $171,400. It makes me sick. So we're gonna name the charged because I just want to call them out, right? These were the individuals charged. Brian Salisbury. Anybody who got raked through the coals by any of these people, you need to fight it. If they ever showed up at your house. So Brian Salisbury is 46 years old. He's from Memphis. And then we've got Courtney Keensha Westmoreland, 38 of Cordova, Tennessee. We got Fatina Hewitt, 35 of Olive Branch, Mississippi. We got Roderick DeMarco White, the second. He's only 27, starting his crime spree early of Memphis. And Tina Humes, 56 of Memphis. And I'm sure there's many, many more, maybe somewhere out there. But who really investigates? Really the investigators. We've learned that. Thankfully, these 4 were caught. But I'm really concerned about how much power the IRS has, right, over us, what it's going to be used for. I know all of you are worried about that too. I see all of your tweets. I see your emails to me, your comments to me on Twitter, on Instagram. There is a lot of concern, guys, a lot of concern. I just want to read this. This is according to the DOJ. This is what they did. Salisbury obtained, listen to this, $171,400 in loan funds. And guess what he bought? A Mercedes-Benz. He was driving around in the Benz. Like while he was probably targeting small businesses that probably can't even hardly make it because of all the ridiculous laws put into place, with COVID laws that were all over our country that destroyed our nation. Yes, those. But they didn't affect people like, Governor Newsom or Nancy Pelosi or the elite crowd, the crowd that didn't really want to wear their masks all the time or wanted to go eat and spend $25,000 on dinners or get their hair done at salons. Listen to this. Hewitt scored $28,900 in loans. Hewitt got some. How old was Hewitt? Let's look back at Hewitt again. Hewitt, how old were you? Or is it Humes? Hewitt was 35 from Olive Branch, Mississippi. Scored $28,900 in loans and purchased Gucci clothing and a trip to Las Vegas. Bam! That's what you could do with taxpayer dollars. Oh, listen to this. With more than $66,000 in illicit loan proceeds, White purchased personal items, including a Gucci bag. I don't even own one Gucci bag. Not one. These people are just so out of control, and they're such posers, right? Like, you're the IRS. You're walking around with Gucci bags. I would throw their ass out of my house if they showed up at my house to basically go over my taxes with a freaking Gucci bag. I would be so embarrassed for them. Oh, listen to this. With $123,612 in ill-gotten funds, Humes splurged on jewelry and trips to Las Vegas. Westmoreland, she treated herself to manicures, massages, and luxury clothing with more than, listen to this, $11,000 fraudulent pandemic loans finagled through multiple PPP and EIDL program applications for a purported apparel business. So she was just going to open up a business with all of the money that belonged to the American people. She also allegedly submitted fraudulent unemployment insurance benefit applications to the Tennessee Department of Labor while she was a full-time IRS employee, snagging another $16,050 in benefits. Wow. Just a reminder. The Biden administration just hired 87,000 new IRS agents. They're coming to your house or your business anytime now. You can tell them to go take their Gucci bag and stick it. Thank you so much for being here with me today on the Sara Carter Show. You know how much I love reading your reviews and talking to you and hearing all of your thoughts on the show, who you'd like me to bring on. Please do leave those reviews. Contact me directly. You can reach me on any of my social media apps. You go to Twitter at Sara Carter DC, on Instagram at SCarterDC. You can reach me on Rumble. You can reach me on YouTube. You could just reach me on email. Again, God bless you. God bless our great nation. And God bless the great state of Texas.